Check, check, 1, 2. Hello, everybody, and welcome in. My name is Will. I'm going to do another Noise and Coffee live stream here using Kyma. I've done a number of videos in the past on spectral analysis and resynthesis, including one a few weeks ago with my good friend Simon, where we went over how to do a spectral analysis as well as start to look at the morph and how to get it on some MIDI faders. But I wanted to specifically take some time to look at how to navigate and perform some of this morph or spectral information, including a morph. So I'm going to go through a couple of different things. I'm going to use the Wacom tablet and beneath it the Continuum Fingerboard. So you can see my right hand here, the lower right hand corner, and then that's the same hand, it's just a different angle so you can see better what I'm doing. So what I'm going to do is start with this sum of sines prototype. Okay, and I'm gonna put these same spectra that were in here that I did a couple weeks ago with Simon. So if you saw that, then you're already up to speed. If you haven't, you might check that out, and this much of it will make more sense. But I've got this harmonic spectrum word. Actually, it sounds like this. Sounds like morph.
Morphing.
Morphing. And looks like this.
Morphing.
Okay. And then I'm going to grab this sticky plastic tube. Sounds like this. And there's its spectrum. All right. And now what I want to do is figure out how I can use this controller, the Wacom tablet, and the pen that goes with it to perform the morph and navigate the spectral content. So I'm not necessarily looking for the smoothest morph here all the time necessarily, but to find points of expression and indexing along the way. Sip here. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is just get this whole thing performable from the pen. So I'll explain this as I go. I'm going to lose this expression for now in the frequency field for the morphing spectrum. I'm also going to leave this alone, leave it at 0 hertz as well, so it's just going to default to what it's stored as in that file. Then for my dB morph, that's my amplitude envelopes, and my pitch morph, that's the frequency envelopes. When they're 0, it's coming from this analysis. When they're 1, it's coming from this analysis. And when it's values in between, we get a blend, some mix of these two spectra. For this, I'm going to try pen Y. I'm going to do the same thing here. Y is going to be this up-down axis on the Wacom tablet. And I'm actually going to also add this smooth for, I don't know, let's try 10 milliseconds. That's going to linearly interpolate between the previous value and the current value over the course of 10 milliseconds. Then with this AR tack release envelope, I'm just going to copy it from the prototypes, plunk it into this envelope field, lose the L, which is the left side of the sound, so we can get full sample rate instead of 1000 hertz, which is Cappy Talk. Up to 1000 hertz is Cappy Talk rate. Then I'm going to gate it from a pen down. Right, so that's literally when the pen touches this, it gates this sound. Just going to go for a quick attack and release one sample. And then the scale, I'm going to set to pen Z. This is pressure, so the Z-axis into the tablet. Alright, so that's my AR field, sum of signs. We're back here now. So I've got gated by a pen down. I've got my morph on the Y-axis because pen Y sends values from 0 to 1. So we're just right off the bat, we're in a good place there because that's what these fields expect to see. Control time means that when I check this, I get this time index field to come into play. Without it, I'm in on duration, which would be how long it takes to read through the spectrum. But with time index, I can literally navigate to different points in the spectrum. So I'm going to use a pen for this as well. And it's always a kind of natural association with time on the x-axis. So I'm just going to start there for now. Time index is looking for ranges of -1 to 1, with -1 being the very beginning, 0 the middle, 1 the very end. But pen X by default sends values in the range of 0 to 1, which isn't a problem. It just means that if I just left this pen X, we would only have the second half of the spectrum, which maybe what you want. In a way, it's like zooming in just on that section. So we can check that out as well. But when I multiply by 2, that increases the range from 0 to 2. And then when I subtract 1, shifts that whole range down 1 to give us a range of -1 to 1. So now the spectrum is on the width of the tablet. Seems slightly redundant, but I'm going to put a pen down in here as well. On duration, as we said, didn't matter because I've got this control time working. And then loop. When loop is checked, it loops between start and start plus length in this case. So we could loop a part of the spectrum. For now, I'll leave that out as well. It's going to be 128 sine wave oscillators for this resynthesis, which is this number of partials. But if I shift click, you can see that there's only 124 partials. So I can just change this to 124. Those additional 4, nothing's going to happen. So now just to see what we've got, make sure it looks okay. Yeah, let's see what we've got. Okay, so it's getting gated by the pen down. We know that much. But nothing's happening if in terms of a morph unless I move the pen. So when I just press and hold, it's literally like I'm frozen, stuck on that one spot in the spectrum, which is kind of cool because I can hold that, but remember, towards me, which is the bottom of the y-axis, is 0. We're in the morphing spectrum. Towards the top, we're in the plastic tube. So if I just move as much as I can from only on the y-axis, we can just morph a very narrow part of the spectrum, essentially moving up and down a frame. But if I go from left to right,
Morphing.
Okay, now I'm just reading through
Morphing.
the morphing, the closer I am to 0.
Morphing.
If I go about halfway, we're somewhere in between the two spectra.
Morphing.
If I go from 0 to 1 over the x-axis, so like this in linear fashion, as much as I can, we should hear it pretty smoothly.
Morphing. Morphing. Morphing.
What's cool about doing it this way, if you think about it now as like a form of expression, not simply just an automated morph, which you might want sometimes, but actually like as an environment, I can come in here and find really interesting places where these spectrums are similar or dissimilar and exploit that for a form of expression. All right. When I go from right to left, I'm reading through the spectrum backwards, which is why we hear it that way. Notice that the faster I move, the faster we read through it. All right. That's kind of conceptually how it makes sense to me. Morph from on the y-axis, read through them on the x-axis, and have some sort of volume amplitude control as pressure, but it doesn't have to be that way. So let's just see what might happen if we just do something a bit different. And I mentioned before changing this time index range. If I don't want the whole spectrum there, I could just do pen X, which would just be the second half, but the first half seems more interesting, at least in the morphing one. Most of morphing is said in the first half. So if I just subtract 1, then what that's going to do when pen X is 0, we have 0 minus 1, which means -1, which would be the very beginning. So now the very beginning is here. As it was before, what's different is when pen X is 1, which is when the pen is here, pen X is 1, minus 1 is 0. So now we only have the first half of the spectrum on the tablet. So again, it's just kind of like zooming in, leaving off the second half. Let's just check out what that has done for us. So like I said, most of morphing is there. All the way through morph is in the first half. All right. Let's try. We could put pen Z here as well instead of pen Y. So now the morph is going to happen on the Z-axis with pressure. So when there's very little pressure and no pressure, then I'm in the morphing spectrum. And then when I push harder, up to 1, we morph to the sticky plastic tube on the Z-axis. Okay, that's fine. Let's play with this frequency field as well, so there's a nice opportunity here. So as I said before, default hertz, just going to play this at the base frequency that's stored in morph. And essentially what that means right now is it's just playing back at what it was recorded or analyzed at, but I can scale these amplitude envelopes with information from the pen as well. So I'm going to try pen X as well here, and I'll put that in the same so it does it for the sticky plastic tube. Let's check this out. Won't make too many changes at a time so that we can try to isolate them So now the morph is on the z-axis, and I can scale the frequency envelopes with the x-axis of the pen. Okay, so over here is quite low. We should hear it get higher here. You can see the Z fader there. Let me move it a little bit. So no, very little pressure. It's quite sensitive. So you see, every little change, it's like I have to relearn how I might perform it. So just little changes like that, and you get a big change in sound. So one cool thing to take away is that Pen X could come into dB morph and pitch morph. You could use independent pen values here. You don't have to have the same on both of these. It's all just numbers here. So it's just a matter of what part of the pen you want it to come from. One that's kind of fun is pen tilt angle. And pen tilt angle is literally this rotation. So it goes from 0 to 2, and I'll show you that in the VCS. But I'm going to do that for the frequency as well on these. It's going to get pretty nuts. Oh, I don't want to the power of. Okay. Okay, so you can see pen tilt angle right there. It's about 0, and then as I move around, it gets bigger and bigger, and then back to 0. So okay, I could play with that all day, but the point is there's some different ideas now about how to navigate this spectra, and doing so using the pen. And you could experiment with different ranges here, or different pen values. It's a vast world of exploration, but that gives you some idea of how to literally get the morph in your hands and navigate it in a unique way for the Wacom tablet. Let's take a sip of coffee here and shift to the Continuum Fingerboard. So this is, some of you may have this or have played with this, but this has 3 dimensions. You've got your X and Y, and then you also have pressure here as well. And this thing is super sensitive. It has a tight integration with Kyma. It's not just another MPE or MPE Plus controller. That's not quite the right way to think about this, but that's for another video. So I'm going to take this same structure, tutorial C-morph spectrum here, and morph with this, but instead of the pen, we're going to do it here. All right. So first thing is going to be these pen values can go. I'll stick at default hertz for now. Instead of pen Z, I'm going to put key timbre. Key timbre is just automatically seen by Kyma from the continuum here. It's on this y-axis. So when it's closer down here, it's a 0. Towards the top, it's a 1. So the morph from the morphing spectrum to the sticky plastic tube is now going to happen along the y-axis. Again, linearly interpolating over 10 milliseconds. Envelope, I can leave it in there, but I want to change this to now be a key down. I'll leave my attack time 1 sample, release time 1 sample. This time scale is going to be key velocity. All right. I'm going to do something with control time here in a minute, but for now I'm going to uncheck that. So time index is off. And now I can put key down here as well. This is a MIDI key down. So when a finger goes on the fingerboard, we have a MIDI note on event and it kicks us out. All right, on duration now is how long it takes to read through this analysis. And it's saying 4 seconds times 2 minus rate. Rate would be a fader in the VCS. But let's just try like 3 seconds. I'm just making that up. You could literally put anything there. This spectrum is 3.23 seconds, and the morphing one is 1.3. So it's going to read through morphing a little bit slower, and this one slightly quicker. So let's just check this out again. So if I just put a finger down here, this is lower.
Morphing. Morphing. Morphing.
And okay, so I've got the morph happening on the y-axis.
Morphing.
That's cool, but you notice wherever I play, it's the same. Not quite what I'm looking for, so I'll go key pitch here. And now lower events should hear this scaled lower.
Morphing.
Higher. I still All right. So now I can change the frequency envelopes based on the key pitch I play here, and then still keep the morph on the y-axis. Pretty neat. Let's go back to, let's try something interesting. Control time. So now I've got this time index field, and let's put kind of similarly to how we put the spectrum on the width of the tablet. Let's do the same thing here. Get the whole spectrum of both of these sounds on the fingerboard. So we need to do a couple of things. MIDI note numbers go from 0 to 127, at least in a standard sense. But first of all, this is only a half fingerboard, so I don't even have that many keys. And then secondly, we need values in the range from -1 to 1. So we can think through this about how we would get this range of the fingerboard in the range that the time index is expecting to see. So I happen to know that this key right here is middle C, which is MIDI note number 60. So I want to figure out what this one is, because that's the bottom of my range right now. So if this is 60, I subtract 12 known numbers, I've gone down an octave. So this would be 48. 47, 46, 45, 44, 43, 42, 41, 40, 39. So I drop out. I can't get below 39 right now. So what I want to do is make, when I play here, I want that to be, for now, let's say it's 0. So I would do key number minus this value, which is note number 39. So if I do that, when key number is 39, 39 minus 39 is 0. Great. Then I want to divide by, or first I want to figure out what the top is. So kind of similar to what I did before. If this is 60, I go up an octave. Plus 12 would be 72. Plus 12 would be 84. And then it kind of goes a little further. There's like a half key there to 85. Okay, so let's just say I choose 85. Then I want to subtract the minimum from that. I'll explain this. So I would subtract 39. And now, when key number is 0, we're at 0 divided by, doesn't matter, it's going to be 0. Right? So now we're in the range of 0 to something. Then when key number is 85, I've maxed it out here. We have 85 minus 39 divided by 85 minus 39, which is 1. We don't actually have to do that math specifically. So now we're in the range of 0 to 1. So kind of just like before with the tablet, we're only seeing a certain part of it at that point. If I want the whole spectrum, I now have to scale and offset this value from being 0 to 1. I have to put it in the range of -1 to 1. So I multiply it by 2 to increase the range to 0 to 2. Then I subtract 1, shifts the whole thing down. And now I have the spectrum, both these sounds, on the x-axis, the continuum. And specifically, I have the morphing one down here at 0. And when key timbre is 1, we're at the sticky plastic tube. Okay, so now let's check this out. And I'm basically reading through it with my fingers here. Somewhere in between. You notice now I can freeze, just like holding the pen in a certain spot, I can just freeze right here. Right now, it's only monophonic. So if I grab a MIDI voice, plunk it there, I now have 5-note polyphony, which means that I could hold down this. That's pretty wild. Alright, you get it. There's different options. We can hear how there's some similarities to the pen, but ultimately this is its own thing, and it's about, for me at least, thinking about a different way of navigating this spectral information and performing it. So it'd be one thing to automate it to be as smoothly as possible, which could be awesome. It's only necessary. But if I wanted to actually perform it and find some expression in there, this is a couple of ways of doing it. And it's just options I've chose. It's not that it has to be this way by any means, but it's a couple of ideas. And the big thing to remember is that you want to understand what ranges or values a parameter field is looking for. So you don't want to send 20 to a range, a parameter field that's looking for a range of 0 to 1 without understanding what that might do or doing some other arithmetic on it. So just if you go meticulously, then you could put anything you want in there. Scale and offset the data, and you can navigate it and perform it however you might like. So I'm just going to noodle around with this a little bit more and see what I find. These are the vowels. This is the morphing. Orphing is right here. So there's a lot to work with. Notice higher up. Not only is it higher, but there's less happening, like right here, for example. That's so fun to play with. Alright, that is way too fun. I could do that all day. But that gives you some ideas. If you don't have a continuum, you don't necessarily need one. You can still use a lot of this same information. Key down, key pitch. You won't quite have key timbre, but you could use another, use a MIDI CC or something like that and get it, or again, just play around. I've basically just made a whole new instrument here, so I would have to take some time to dial it in, but conceptually I understand what these things do, so then it's just a matter of continuing to refine and put them where I think they might be interesting, playing around, and then keeping in mind that this whole thing would sound entirely differently if I swapped out a different spectrum. So there's some ideas. I think that was noisy enough for today. I'll play with this a little bit and lead us out. Thanks for tuning in. There's other videos. I'll link them in the description for how I got to this point and index this video as well, so you can skip around. And if you have questions, let me know. Have a good day, everyone. See you next time. Hey Simon, I see your thumbs up there. I'm having fun with our Spectra that we did, and we're gonna have to talk more about it soon. Thanks for tuning in. Simon has a great channel, everyone. Tons of good information. We've got some nice collaborations from the past and upcoming as well. So you might take some time and check out his channel if you haven't already. Yeah, the Hawken fingerboard is it's just magic. It really is, to get a sound on here like this and be able to dig into it. It's so fun. All right, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. There'll be more of these coming. And check out Simon's channel as well, who helped with the initial video. I'll link that in the description if you want to see the initial spectral analysis of these two files and how we kind of got the initial workings for this. We'll see you next time.